Hello and welcome to Zenatta Consulting's monthly webinar series. This one is going to be on Zoho Cliq. It is our full product tutorial from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colts, and let's get right on into the agenda.
So Tyler, Cliq is one of our favorite applications. I think this is going to be a fun one for us to do today. We use it so much. We use it internally. It's something we basically run a whole bunch of aspects of our company through. And it's just a great app. If you aren't familiar with Zoho Cliq, it's very similar to Slack, Microsoft Teams, same kind of concept. If you've been using Slack and you just came over to Zoho, maybe you got Zoho 1, so Cliq is included. There's a great migration tool in there. Tyler and I can talk about that a little later on. But today we're just going to run through pretty much everything there is on Cliq. It's not all that complicated at the end of the day, Tyler. So we've got our product overview, settings, channels and conversations, integrations, bots, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A. So hold your questions, put them over there on the side. And if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and drop them in live and we will answer those at the end of our presentation. And I guess with that, Tyler, let's get into a product overview. So at the top here, you've got remote work. This was actually developed during COVID. It was so you could actually know who's at work, who's away, whether or not they're on a break, a small break, whether or not they put themselves into do not disturb. But what you can do is when you go ahead and check in, it's going to say you are checked in. When you're checking out for the day, you can just check here and say you've checked out. You want to go on a quick break, you can go ahead and do that as well. And then you can check back in. It's just letting people know you're in, you're out, you're here, you're not. Maybe you're in a meeting. It's going to let you know any of the meetings they're in. So somebody can look at this, see who's active in the organization, see who is not. You can also quickly schedule a meeting in here. You can meet now with someone. It's all really, really, really simple and easy to use, kind of a way of letting you know what's going on and who's available in your organization. Additionally, you can turn on a live video feed. This is for those Orwellian people out there who'd like to just, you'll have this live feed and people can kind of check in on you and see if you're at your desk or not. And so that is something that some companies want to require for remote workers to kind of check in. It's a feature that I think I find a little, disturbing, but it is there inside of Zoho Cliq. Running down the line for remote work, you have your chats, and you'll see here you've got pin chats. So what does that mean? These are people maybe you want to talk to a lot. So and so you can do that with any of them. Like if I wanted to pin Tyler, I would go ahead and pin him. He's now going to move up to my pin chats. Maybe I want to get rid of customer service. I can unpin that. Very, very, very easy here to organize your chats. Additionally, when you're looking at all your pins, you have the ability to add someone in, to add a folder, a lot of different ways you can kind of organize your overall chat sessions and what you're working in. Chatting is straightforward. As you can see here, I can send a quick message to Tyler, and it's just an internal communication. You also can set up groups. Maybe you got 4 or 5 people you want in a group. You can go ahead and have those people in a group as well and go ahead and communicate directly with them. You also can do mentions when you're in a group. So I put Tyler here. If, let's say I'm talking to someone, maybe you've got a group chat, 5, 6 people going. This one is going to actually call him out and make a special sound, let him know, hey, guess what? This message was sent directly to you inside of a group chat. Kind of moving down the line, you've got your overall contacts. These are all the people you have contacts with. All of the bots that are installed. Tyler's going to talk a little bit about bots here a little later on. If you wanted to add a contact, it's really simple. Normally, you're going to put in their email address and it's going to search for them, and then it's going to bring them right in. You can add people in your organization or outside of your organization. Once you put your email address in, though, you can go ahead and send them that invite. And once they accept it, they will be part of your Cliq organization, your Cliq contacts list. Additionally, you have channels. So channels can be a little different. You want to use these, you're going to have a group of people. We have several channels over at Zenatta. We've got one channel, which is all Zenatta staff. and that's where we post announcements specifically related to things that are going on in the company. We have one called the Zen Garden, and in the Zen Garden, that is where people can talk about other stuff, post memes, whatever they want, kind of non-business work. It's just a place for people to chat back and forth with each other, and that's a great use for a channel. Additionally, there's a lot of things you can configure with channels, using a little bit of deluge code and some other things. You can actually set up little bots that can pull information in. So let's say, in our organization, people are using Zoho, they upgrade a license. We can put a little notification into a specific channel that says, hey, this client upgraded one license. Set them up for different things. So, the Christmas party, maybe there's only 3 people on the Christmas party group. You make this channel just available for them. They're going to see it. Nobody else is invited to it. They can talk about that there. You can have an announcements channel like we talked about. Channels are very, very helpful kind of way just to keep things organized and keep it kind of out of your one-on-one conversations. Additionally, you can have your history, and this is telling you everything that's kind of gone on. So Tyler sent me, hey there, just prior to us getting on here, I enabled the project spot. We'll talk about that in a second. Something happened over in the marketing department. There was a chat in the Christmas profile. Basically, you can look at an entire history of what is going on in your organization in the history area. One of the things I didn't mention, I'll talk about this, is, this is not just a chat thing, something where you can chat, but you can also make calls. You can make an audio call, you can do a video call, you can do a screen share. So it's a great way for collaboration. And this also applies, you can invite 3, 4, 5 people to a meeting and kind of instantly fire up a collaborative session, whether it's audio, video, screen share, all of the above. You can kind of set that up. So really a really nice way of quickly communicating with someone. You don't have to send them an email and say, hey, click here, join my Zoom meeting or join my Zoho meeting. You basically can just instantly start a meeting from just within any contact or group. Additionally, so that's kind of where calls come into play. If you're looking at calls, you'll have a history of all the calls you've had, any calls that you may have missed, any calls you've received. So when let's say you walk away from your desk, you'll come back, there'll be a little notification here. Maybe it'll have 2 and it'll say you missed 2 missed calls. You can click in here and see who you missed your calls from directly. Additionally, all files and groups that you're a part of or individuals that you've sent chats to, you can kind of click here to quickly go through all the files. So here's a file I sent to Tyler talking about the CRM Zen show and how many new subscribers we had last month, views, those kind of things. Really, really easy to quickly kind of sort through all your files. They're sorted by date. So hey, somebody sent me something in October and I want to go through. You can kind of quickly scan and find whatever files you're looking for that way as well. You also can, of course, organize them by list view, kind of make it easier to kind of scan through and find what you are looking for. Zoho Cliq also includes a calendar. So if you want to basically track company events, you can do so really, really easily inside of the calendar. So here we've got, our Thanksgiving planning session is going on. You can have your marketing department calendar. Maybe your marketing department wants to get together. You can turn that on. Maybe you've got a vendors group where people are, meeting to discuss products. Any of those kind of things, you can have a separate calendar, more of a company calendar where people can go and see what's going on company wide. And you don't necessarily have to clutter up your Zoho calendar or your Gmail calendar. You can do it all right there. Additionally, Cliq connects to Zoho Notebook. So you can go ahead and take a look at all of the notes that you have in Notebook without having to launch over to Zoho Notebook and look at it there. You actually can take a look at any of your notes just by clicking on Notes. You also can configure tasks in here, and you can associate it with whatever application you want to pull tasks from. In this case, I associated it with Zoho Projects, and it gives you a nice little Kanban view that you can move around based upon the Zoho projects. You will have to associate it with an organization inside of projects, but once you do that, all of your open tasks inside Zoho projects will be pulled in here as well. So most of the day-to-day features you're going to use run down the left-hand side here. So let's say I wanted to star a particular message from Tyler that I needed to get back to. You just basically hover under their head, and I can say this is rather important, and it's now going to be starred. So as I go across the top now and I look at my starred messages, it will appear there. You can also have mentions. I talked to you about earlier about the @ tag where I wrote at Tyler. Maybe you want to come in and just quickly look at anything where you've been mentioned so you can quickly respond to that. You can go ahead and click on the mentions. And additionally, we have reminders. If you want to set up quick reminders for yourself, you can set a reminder for yourself. You can assign reminders to others. Just kind of quick little things that maybe it's not on the calendar thing. Maybe you just mentioned to somebody, hey, 5 minutes before lunch, give me a ring. You can set a quick reminder there to let them know to do just that. And additionally, you can look at all of the extensions. This web by clicking the little marketplace icon at the top of the page, it's going to take you into the Zoho Marketplace and just for the integrations that are available for Cliq. And there are a lot of integrations. So you can basically go through these, pick the one you want, and go ahead and connect it, and it will connect into Cliq and display the information that needs to be displayed in Cliq, depending on what type of app it is. So for example, if you connect the Twilio SMS and WhatsApp, it's basically going to set you up a channel inside Cliq where you can have that level of communication. If you wanted to connect something like, let's say, Dropbox, it's going to let you know when a new file was added into Dropbox. There's a lot of different settings you can set up for these. And the marketplace is growing all the time. So go ahead and be sure, no matter what Zoho application you're using, be sure to check out the marketplace because it might just have that missing connector or app that you were looking for. And then to round it off, you'll have a little announcements button here. This is for Zoho. This is where Zoho is going to go ahead and drop their announcements. So if you ever see that lit up, you'll want to go ahead and click on it. That's kind of the overview. One of the strange things is getting into settings. To do that, it's unlike most, I think it's like unlike any other Zoho app that there is, but you actually would click on like what's normally the silhouette of your head or your logo up here, and you're going to access all of your settings, bots and tools. You can manage your guests, the admin panel, all of that kind of stuff is handled under that settings tab. And with that, Tyler, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can talk a little bit about settings.
Alrighty, and so jumping into settings, like Brett's mentioning, there's different than every other Zoho app. We're kind of used to looking for that little cog wheel, but here it is just under your icon. And there are two different types of settings. One is going to be available to everyone, and the other is only going to be for admins. So up here at the top, we have this profile and settings section. This is like what each of your users are going to get to determine for themselves. So here you can change quick things like, do you want it to be default to dark mode or do you want to default to day mode? You can choose basic things about the layout, the color, right? Some of these little views around navigation and, getting through the application. Minor things around how you want multi-chats to function. Do you only want one at a time versus multiple? They'll also have the ability over here on the left to determine things like their display name. Email address is probably set at the company level. Under general, right, you can choose basic things around translation modes and, kind of how you want it to work across other applications, right? So in many apps, you'll see the little bottom bar, right, that kind of determines if Cliq is going to show up. So those are really more for the users, right? They're kind of minor things for them to go through and tweak as they get used to the application. More of the settings that I would imagine a lot of you care about here are for the admin users, right? Kind of making determinations about how the application is going to function, and some of the rules and regulations that are going to be in place. So I'll do a quick run through here. We're not going to hit every single one of these, but it should give you a good baseline of kind of where to go to look for what you're trying to do. So obviously right out of the gate, out of the top, we've got users. If you're in Zoho 1, this is all going to be managed there. Otherwise, you can go ahead and add or deactivate any of your users natively here within Cliq. Inside of Cliq, we can also set up teams. Teams are just groups of people that you might want to add to certain channels or conversations easily, right? So maybe the marketing department needs to be part of a group conversation, but then they're also all going to be a part of a certain automated channel receiving automated notifications. We don't want to have to add every user to every channel, so we can just add them to a team and then they'll just fall into those channels naturally. Departments really only come into play if you have kind of an interesting setup here for Zoho Cliq. Most of the time, right? You run everything out of one department and then segment your conversations based on different channels, and topic-based groupings. Designations, we're going to skip. This is just kind of like a role. If you wanted to have people have certain roles or kind of like subtexts underneath them. So Tyler Colt, consultant versus developer, you can set those up under your designations. The organization detail has kind of the common things that if you've seen one of our webinars, you'll probably know most of the things that are going to be in the organization setting, right? You've got your baseline company information. If you want to change, the name of the company that's going to show up, any of your baseline contact or address information. Under configurations, there's a whole bunch of default settings and rules. We're not going to cover all of these, but I'll kind of go through and highlight some of them that you might want to touch on. So you can control things like, inside of conversations, things like what types of things should people be able to upload. Ideally, you're in an organization where you don't have to control uploads, but if you are, you can do that through here. You can also set certain timeframes and permissions around deleting and editing messages. This one can be kind of nice in the sense that, maybe you've got one day to delete something, but after that, you got to stick by what you said, right? And you can't just delete things from conversations. Having the ability to do read receipts, allowing people to turn those on. Again, keeping in mind that these are kind of your settings for the full organization. Some specific rules around channels, right? So you've got different types of channels that we'll cover in a little bit, but you can configure what types of replies should people be able to do inside of a channel, basically on should you be using normal replies or threads. We're not going to go too deep into threads on this session today. It's really mostly a preference thing. Throughout the rest of these, I'm not going to go super deep on the rest of these settings under configurations here, but essentially these are lots of different defaults, options, or abilities that you can turn on or off, right? So do I want calendar events as a whole? Whereas some other settings are going to give you a way to go a little bit deeper and determine certain abilities that you want to enable or disable for people as they go through various, usages of the system. Here I'm going to skip down to permission. The rest of these are just going into, some of the nitty gritty that we don't need to cover today. Permissions inside of Cliq are pretty important. So roles, of course, are going to be able to set up who's going to be an admin, right? So who should be able to, create new channels, create new threads, and really dictate how the setup of the application was done. Whereas members are really more just able to access what they've been permissioned to and use it, but they can't create or edit the configuration of the app. You can also set up custom roles, but they're really not extremely deep, right? So people are really either an admin or they are a member. So the new roles, you could have separate roles to be able to group people a little bit more granularly, but they're not going to affect much of what is going on inside of the system. Down here under allowed IPs, this one is really, it's there if you need it. If you do need the ability to restrict IPs where people can only use the application from certain locations, Cliq actually does support that. If you're on Zoho One, they're going to ask you, because it's going to tie kind of into the Zoho One administration. So here, this is a Zoho One account where it's saying, hey, do you want to do this for everything in Zoho or maybe just for Cliq? And you can decide that here within our allowed IPs. Down here under your admins, these are really like some of the baseline settings that you can define for people, right? So define some of your initial color palettes. If you wanted to replace the logo or favicon in here, you can do that, right? So maybe you want to drop in your logo to make it a little bit more personalized. You can also set up custom domains. So if you wanted this to be like chat.zenatta.com, you can actually configure a CNAME record and point it over here. This is pretty much the same process. If you've done this for one Zoho app, you have kind of done it for all of them. Emailers, or if you wanted to send any notifications from Cliq and you wanted a non-standard email address for those to come from, you can set those up under here. User fields are just if you wanted to track any custom information about your users inside of Cliq. Not a lot of people go down this rabbit hole, but maybe you wanted to give a link to like their LinkedIn or something like that, just natively in Cliq. You can do that here. And then lastly, kind of a fun one, you can add as an admin some custom emojis and stickers that people can use throughout the organization. We have a couple funny ones internally that we like to use that do bring us some joy. So I thought I would show this here. And then lastly, we're going to get back into integrations, but they have a variety of default integrations here inside of Cliq. I'm covering this now so that you'll notice ones that aren't there, like Zoho CRM or Zoho Desk. That's just because some integrations are actually set up outside of Cliq, kind of to point data back to Cliq on a more custom basis. Data administration is pretty minimal, but if you ever do need a full export of Cliq, you can grab that through data administration. And then reports down here at the bottom, this kind of new inside of Cliq. There's not a ton of native reporting, but if you are very diligently using remote work, you can actually pull some data out about working hours, anytime that people have been checked out, and then how much overall time they were working. As again, assuming that you are using the remote work here inside of Cliq. Outside of that, there isn't too many other settings that we want to jump into now. Integrations and bots we're going to cover in a moment, but I will just highlight, you would think that the migration tool from Slack would be under your data administration, but it's actually here as a top level setting. The import from Slack is very, very easy. You pretty much just pull a full backup out of Slack and drop it right in here, and then it will recreate just about everything that you had in your Slack account. And with that, I think we've covered kind of the core settings here. As you could see from the pages, there's a lot deeper that you can go, but hopefully you'll feel oriented as to kind of where to find certain types of features as you dig in and start to build out Cliq for yourself. So our next section here is going to be one that's not very technical, but it's just going to show you how to do something pretty important and a couple delineations about when to use channels versus conversations. So this is an important one to kind of get right from the beginning so that you can keep your Cliq environment as clean and easy to work with as possible. So essentially, when you're chatting with one person, right, it's just a conversation, right? It's a one-on-one between, two people where they're going to talk over an infinite amount of time about a wide variety of topics. But what happens when there's more than one person involved in a certain conversation? Right? So we'll see in here, there's kind of two ways to accomplish what seems like the same thing. You can either start a group conversation or you can create a channel. And so I'll show you how to create each of these, but what I want to highlight first is kind of the difference between the two. So a group conversation is really just if the reason for that grouping is the specific people that are needed to have an ongoing chain of communication, right? Whereas something like a channel, you're more likely to use for a specific topic, maybe a specific event that's coming up. So with a channel, there's generally more specificity afforded for the topic and sometimes like the date period that you're having those conversations. Right. And so a good example is Brett and I, and our VP of operations, Josh, we have a group conversation between the three of us because the three of us need to talk about things in a wide variety of topics all the time with the three of us there. But we're also a part of many, many channels that include us as well as other people for certain topics, right? Billing notifications, desk notifications, and things like that. So you want to be very particular as to what type of group conversation you're making, whether it's either just a kind of a standard conversation or if you need to create it as a channel. To do either one, I'll make a group conversation first. You can go ahead and just grab certain users. It's going to give it an automatic name here. In this case, we really just have, I guess, the three of us. We have my Zenatta account here. Oh, I named that incorrectly. As well as a conversation for Mr. Ben Otta. So if I had both of them, let's make this here so it looks nice and clean. Then we've got our group conversation. And so here again, this shouldn't be specific for any topic, right? Maybe we're three people that work together a lot on similar projects and we just need kind of an open source space to be able to share any information or thoughts that we may have. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a channel. And we'll see that there's a lot more settings, right? And that's kind of intentional because really a conversation should only matter who's a part of it. Whereas a channel, we need to make decisions like, should everybody just be able to open this up and join it? Should it be based on certain teams that are able to join this? Does it need to be very specific and say that only individuals that are specifically invited can join this team? Or does it need to be external, which is something that we could cover in its whole own video, where you want to have people outside of your organization that are a part of this. So I'll start with an organization channel. So they give a couple examples. I'll steal this one for this. So maybe you wanted something like an IT support channel for people to be able to drop certain information. And here we can choose which participants we want to have enabled for this particular channel. Oops, I'm going to click that. Now notice the difference if I jump over to team, things get a little bit more specific, right? So now if I go over to a team channel, outside of just being able to add participants, I can now also add people based on those teams that were set up under our settings, right? So maybe if we've got something like a sales notification channel, maybe we want marketing to know so that they can know about new deals that are coming in, right? They can check and maybe look into some of the sourcing information and, figure out what worked to close those deals. We'll also notice that if everybody is already contained in a certain team, you're not able to add them as an individual participant, right? So while the marketing department is in there, we're not able to add people that are already in that department and that group as additional participants. Here, it's always good to add a channel description. So this channel will include automated notifications from CRM closed won deals. Right, just so that it's always there, people kind of know what this channel is about. Maybe you have a new employee who's poking around. It'll be easy for them to know the purpose of this channel. Under this advanced configuration, which I accidentally clicked earlier, we can see if we want to set up anything like our threads. Do we want to have threads inside of this channel or normal replies? Do we want notifications when people are added or removed? Are you able to kind of just create a new chat on the fly as part of a meeting? And then some specific functionality for admins, moderators, and members, right? So we can kind of turn on and off certain functionality based on the role of whichever user is a part of this channel. So I'll go ahead and create this now, right? And we'll see that we've got our channel name automatically defined, and we have some of those initial people actually added into the channel for them to be able to use it. So again, just to kind of sum that up, we don't need to go down the rabbit hole too far, but group conversations are just for when you have individual people and they need to be able to communicate over an indefinite period of time about a wide variety of topics. Whereas channels, you want to make them more specific and either have them centered around a certain topic or even a topic within a certain date period. So that you're able to keep things super clean and organized here inside of Cliq. And now, while we're on this topic, just the last little thing here, because it is very, very helpful. Go ahead and send a test message so that this will show up. Over here on the right-hand side, we can actually pin these different channels into groupings that make more sense, right? So we don't want everything over here to just be kind of like sitting in a list of pins. Under this little kind of 3 dots, we can actually add a folder for these. And I actually didn't know about this for a long time until we hired a gentleman named Cody who showed me this. So let's say I want to make one for automated notifications. Actually make a folder here. And within my pins, I can drag and drop them into specific sections to keep things clean. This is one that is supremely helpful if you use Cliq a lot. So one that I just wanted to highlight here is that as you're creating all these different groupings and channels, be sure to be ahead of it and just be pinning and organizing things as you go. And you will be much happier down the line when you are in folder nirvana here over on the left-hand side of Cliq. I think with that, we can jump on into our next section, which will be on some of the integrations offered with Zoho Cliq. Alrighty, so as I mentioned earlier, under our settings, we do have some of our integrations listed. So, 365, Zoho People, single sign-on, mobile device management, Zoho Projects, telephony, and notebook. Brad kind of already set up this Zoho Projects integration. And basically the way to think about it is that if the integration is here natively inside of Zoho Cliq, what it's likely going to do is add like an embed of that application, right? So when Brett installs this projects integration from here, it's installing this embed from Zoho Projects, which basically is the full Zoho Projects app just built into the UI of Zoho Cliq, minus like some of the settings and configuration that you would do on the project side. But within the Zoho ecosystem of applications, there's actually a lot of other apps that have pre-built connections for CRM. And so I had set up this channel earlier for sales notifications. So how would we actually go about setting up a notification here that would come from CRM automatically when we, let's say, win a deal, right? If we want to match that description we gave it, we should trigger this on a deal being closed won. So under the CRM here and under most Zoho applications, under the settings, you're going to have a section for marketplace or integrations. And within that, you'll have a section for Zoho. So here within the CRM, we have kind of a demo install where we don't have anything installed. So I'm going to set up this Zoho Cliq integration. And it's very simple on this side, right? We're really just like connecting the dots between the two applications and setting up the basic permissions that let them talk, right? So this baseline integration, it's just binary. Yes, we are connected, or no, we're not. But so then what happens when we actually want to automate a notification going out when a deal enters a certain stage, right? So here we have this one stage, or maybe we'd want to do it on payment received. I'm going to keep it simple and do one, but you could do this for any stage. Under our workflows, so under settings, getting a little mini CRM webinar here as we go. Under our workflows, we'll make a workflow for deals. And the stage is 1. We'll go ahead and notify Cliq. So I'll go through this part quickly. We've got lots of videos on workflows and kind of the logic and reasoning for setting them up as we do. So basically what this reads as, once a deal is updated to match the status of stage is 1, we want to do a thing, right? In CRM, you can do lots of different things based on these workflows. But because we have that integration turned on, we're actually able to now natively notify via Cliq with no custom code, nothing crazy that we need to do here. We are just able to notify through directly to Cliq. And so we'll see there's two ways to do it. You can either like do it to like a deal owner, right? Where it will like dynamically message whoever is the owner of that deal in Cliq. Or in this case, if it's more of an announcement, you can actually notify through to a certain channel, right? So here I'm going to notify through to my sales notifications channel. But you could surely set this up to say like message the deal owner and let them know that this closed so that they can do X, Y, and Z to kick off the onboarding. But here we'll set up a notification to our channel. And that now is set. Oops, I think I need to add our message. Knew I was missing something in here. Up here, I'm typing out the message that I want to send. If I hit pound, I'm actually able to merge in any data that's a part of that deal. So I could say deal name closed for, let's say, deal amount. And I'll click save. Go ahead and save that. Now our workflow is turned on and we are looking good. So if I go ahead and open up the CRM here, maybe I've got an example deal. Looks like it might be a $0 amount. So I'm going to make sure we've got a little bit of forecasting here. Is go for 10,000. Let's go ahead and move this to 1. Now we'll see down here at the bottom, it's actually done its little Cliq embed and pop up here. But back inside of the Cliq application in our sales notifications channel, we've got a little pop-up here from Zoho CRM where we can just click view record and that will actually launch us right to that application. And we're able to, view the rest of the information that we might care about for this deal. Now, this is really similar in lots of other Zoho apps. So I'm not going to show it over and over again here. In Zoho Desk, for example, it's like identical. So if you wanted some type of channel where If the ticket status goes to escalated, right, it messages through to a certain channel. It's pretty much identical on that side of the house to set up that type of integration. But hopefully, this is kind of a helpful walkthrough here of just these key steps. Anything you would kind of add here, Brett, that I missed?
No, I mean, I think you've covered it all. I mean, just doing that simple workflow to go ahead and pull something as easy as, hey, a deal has closed or a deal has won. And, as you were showing, it could be any stage of a deal, right? A deal
Yeah.
has moved to proposed, just kind of want to keep track of that. Um, I guess what I would point out is just this is super, super powerful. We actually have it set up. I mean, the things you can do inside Click with Zoho once you're doing Zoho is you can actually parse an email, pull. So if an email is sent to a certain email address or from a certain thing, maybe you get all these, depending on what business you're in, you're getting all these notifications. They're all sent to you by email. And you'd really like to parse that out. And you'd like to drop that into a specific channel just as one single line. Like I was talking about, one of our client has upgraded by one account. Well, maybe they've downgraded their account, and you want to call them and go, "Is everything okay?" Those kind of things. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
having to scan through hundreds of emails can be rather onerous. But just having to scan through a whole bunch of one-liners that kind of tell you all the information you're looking for, completely different. You can connect it to books. You can, when is an invoice paid? Maybe you only want certain people in your finance department to know that. Maybe you want to know when an invoice is sent out. So, when an invoice is sent out, that information writes in and says, hey, this client was just invoiced. When they paid, you'll note that that client has paid. I mean, there's
Yep.
just so many little things you can do that, we just basically touched on the surface here that make it a super, super powerful tool. I think the thing that changed it for us was just this year, they added the ability for folders to rearrange your pins, to move everything around, to totally organize Click, because it becomes such a useful tool that you end up with dozens and dozens of channels
Yeah,
and
you
hundreds of
start doing
contacts, and
everything inside a click, right? And it
you
just
really
becomes a
do.
little unwieldy. Um, so being able to organize things is just massively useful. So I kind of mentioned like do it early. Start organizing them when you have like 4 or 5 channels because we went through and organized ours when we had like 30 or 40, and it's just a lot more legwork at that point.
Yeah, I think I need more folders actually from my original setup that I did 6 months ago. It just makes it easy and quick to kind of go through everything. But,
Yeah.
it's just so powerful, Tyler. And like you're talking about, this is just one of our favorite tools that Zoho has. It's rock solid. It just works. You really can't go wrong. If you're a Zoho One user, we've got a lot of people say, oh, we're on Slack or we're on Teams. We can't move. You really should. The integrations are worth it. And they're just so many different bots out there and so many different ways you can connect to it. I believe this year too that Click got opened up to Zapier, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly. So you actually can, there's another methodology to get more information into Zoho Click.
Absolutely. I guess with that, you kind of gave me a segue there. You threw out the name of our last section. We'll jump on into bots and how they're slightly different from integrations, but kind of the same, but they're set up a little differently. So we wanted to give you a run through of setting up a bot, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. Alrighty, and so our last section here on bots. To get started, we'll jump up into this menu in the top right, as we so like to do. And here, rather than going into our settings or admin panel, we'll jump into bots and tools. And so here we'll see we have 2 bots that are already installed. The CRM bot is actually installed automatically when you connect CRM into Click. It's also the same for like Zoho Desk. When you do that, it'll install a little desk bot in here that affords you certain abilities. If I open up the bot here, we'll see that you're able to set just basic things like should everybody be able to use this? Are there any particular like action items that you want to display as part of the menu when someone tries to use it? But nothing too crazy under our connections here. Under our commands are where we actually get into some of the good stuff. So inside of these commands, these are actually defined by the bots that we have installed. So if I look at the ZCRM one, the main kind of functionality of these slash commands are to search within CRM. So I'll show you these in just a moment. And it'll show you essentially what the pre-header is that you would need to use to actually use the bot in a chat. couple other little things. You can have message actions included with bots. So with the CRM, it actually gives you the ability to send something to a note in CRM directly from Cliq. That's kind of a fun one. We've done a few little implementations that use that in clever and kind of inventive ways. Widgets I'm going to skip for right now. You can also build out custom functions as part of these bots, as well as schedules. And then the last thing I'll highlight before I show you how they work is that you can actually create your own bot, right? You can build out your complete own tool in here. We have one internally called Zoom E, where you can slash command to ask it if somebody is in a Zoom meeting. And if they are, it'll display a little menu that says, do you want a notification when they're not in a Zoom meeting? Right. So if I have something to ask Brett and I look at his calendar and I see, oh, he might still be in that session, I can just check without having to message him. Right. I can just check with Zoomy. It says, yep, Brett's on a Zoom call right now. And then I know to just be patient, wait a little bit, and then it'll tell me when he is free, and then we can sync up on whatever is on my mind. But so to actually use the bots, if I go back in this sales notifications channel and I type /Z, I guess if I just type slash, we'll actually see there's a whole bunch of different slash commands that are kind of native through Cliq. One of my favorites here is /shrug, which will send the little emote there for shrugging, unless it doesn't work like it did there. But here, what I'll show is under our ZCRM. So, oh, there it is. It just took a moment to get through. I was getting nervous that we wouldn't get our shrug. So here under ZCRM, it's actually going to prompt me and let me know that I'm on the right track. And then if I were to type like deals, for example, the name of a certain module, so here I can do deals, leads, tasks, really anything that is inside of CRM. I can go ahead and grab the one that I want to send out, and it will actually post a little card of that directly into your chat. A lot of the times too, it's going to kind of hold these as only visible for you until you choose to post them. So if you did kind of make sure you wanted to pick the right one before you sent it, maybe you have two deals with a really similar name, you can actually take a look at it before you commit to sending it through. The other one here would be like notebook, right? So we can actually search within our notes. I think it should give me a search on the word example. I mean, none of mine are searched example. I might need to know a little more granularly what my notes are. But you can pull those here directly into Cliq. Again, desk is another really popular one, so that you could search by any ticket number and actually link that directly through to a channel if there's anything that needs some additional review by a group or a topic team. But really, the big thing with the bots is that their goal is to enable your team to reference information from outside of Cliq without having to leave Cliq. Zoho has kind of a fun little line that they use about Cliq where they want it to be the command line of Zoho, right? That in an ideal world, I mean, obviously you're going to need to go to CRM and desk to do things, but that if you're in a conversation with somebody, you should just be able to have that conversation and reference any of the information that lives within other Zoho applications without having to leave Cliq. And those bots do a really good job at it. I mean, I always recommend like if you're rolling out a new Zoho application and you're already a user of Cliq, always check if there's any pre-built integrations, right? Like you could say, you know what, I don't need any automated notifications coming from CRM. It's still worth integrating it so that you get this bot and you're able to do these little searches and quick commands that are just going to end up saving you a whole bunch of time and effort in the long run. So always worth digging in. As you see, a lot of these pre-baked ones are pretty easy to set up. So we always kind of recommend with Cliq to just take a crack at it, right? Start playing around, start building a couple of these integrations, and you'll probably come up with some really fun ideas to improve communication for your team. I think anything else there, Brett, that you'd want to add in about bots?
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, they're again powerful, very nice and handy to pull in information at your fingertips. You can just really do away with a lot of junk that goes into email and just other notifications. And, just like we say, Cliq is a nice place where you can consolidate all
Mhm.
your information, your team conversations, your individual conversations. I don't think we can speak highly enough about it, but
Yeah,
it was a great
I
example of
agree.
the bots, and it is a quick way to ping CRM, quickly just look something up, quickly share it with somebody. Oftentimes I'm sitting there and somebody says, "Hey, what client?" And I just type /ZCRM, boom, and just send them the card. And
There
then
they
from
are.
there, they can click and go right to it. Just makes it dead simple.
Yep. And I think too, you hit on a good thing there is that, by adopting Click more and more, you're able to draw a nice line between channels of communication. So I know that 98% of what comes into my email is from clients or prospects, right? And so I have like a nice place where all of my internal stuff is coming in from. So that if you are kind of like me and you block out parts of your day to clear out your email inbox, you can still get to those internal things without getting them kind of mixed in with all of your external focused work. So super, super
Also,
valuable.
the ability to mute a channel, mute it for an hour, mute it for half an hour, mute everything. I mean, I didn't actually cover it in my overview, but in the upper top left-hand corner there, you've got the little speaker with the X on it. And you can click on that. That basically is just turning off. That's kind of your own little private mute of
Mhm.
everything, because you're not going to get any. It's not going to beep you anytime a message comes in. But the ability to kind of do that, it really allows you to focus. Great productivity tool. Don't think there's anything more we can say about it, Tyler. So maybe with
Awesome.
that, we should get into some Q&A. Okay, and our first question comes from Amanda Bolton. Can you talk about the Click network and how we can use the app to talk with external clients and vendors? Yeah, it's fairly easy. You actually can just go ahead and invite them. They will need to go ahead and have some sort of Zoho license, but there's a free version of Click that they can get. And they can grab that, and then you just invite them by email, and you're basically setting up an external channel.
Yeah, and oftentimes like you can set them up using various members or teams from your organization as well. But yeah, I mean, really, as long as they have at least that free account for Click, you should just be able to send them an invite to whatever email they used for their Zoho account.
Thank you, Amanda. I think we have one more question. Maybe not.
See here, give people a minute if they want to add anything in.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. All right, Tyler. Hey, thank you so much. Great job as always. We want to thank everybody who has joined us here for our webinar. And if you don't know, we also do the CRM Zen show every single Friday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So drop into that. We cover all the latest news that goes on in the world of Zoho. And you can head over to Zenatta.com. You can find all of the back episodes there as well. And you can drop Tyler and I a line if you want to maybe have a meeting with us. Just click the book a meeting link. And also head on over to club.zenatta.com. That is our little social network where we have a whole bunch of people talking about nothing but Zoho all the time.
And last but not least, we would always appreciate if you'd like to follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next month for our next product webinar.